Hello, and thank you once again for making Africa's Your Fate podcast. My name is Jannie in determined conversation with Jannie van der Kaap. He's the convener of the Cape Independence and Cape Secession lobbyists. So today we will be focusing on the issue of secession, particularly in Cape Town, in the Western Cape province, since Cape Town is the capital of the Western Cape province in South Africa. So this thing of secession is not really new to South Africa. I remember in between 1990 and 1993, during the convention for a democratic South Africa, notably known as CODESA, various political parties, they converged to discuss, the ways of how to pave, a new dispensation of a democratic South Africa, and these political parties included the now defunct National Party, the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, the Inkatha Freedom Party, amongst others. But it seems as if some pockets of the society were not happy, with the new dispensation, and the issue of secession, was hovering, in South Africa, but it didn't really happen. But now we're seeing it now that it's like gaining momentum in Cape Town. So we're just going to speak to Jannie about that issue. But it's something which is, the issue of secession is not really something that is new to Africa. We are seeing it with like if you check South Sudan, Sahrawi, even Biafra in Nigeria. So it's something that is not really new. Even closer to South Africa, in Zimbabwe, there is what is called the Mthokazi Republic Party, which is also advocating for the same issue of secession. They want 4 provinces, to secede, from Zimbabwe, like the Matabeleland provinces, Midlands, and Bulawayo. They want to start their own country. So it's something which is not really unique to only South Africa, but the continent at large. So we're just going to hear from Jannie. Why is it they want to secede? Why is it? What is the reason behind that? So that is the first question that I'm just gonna ask Jannie. So let's hear what he has to say.
Secession is a brilliant idea, as far as I'm concerned, for several minorities in South Africa and several communities in South Africa. South Africa, as we know it today, is a product of a decision that was made in the British Houses of Commons or the Houses of Lords many, many years ago, almost by default. It was the product of colonialism that resulted in the Union of South Africa, which was really the unification of a place on the map, a place in Africa, the southern tip of Africa. A couple of states were just bundled together because there was a British dominion. Now, several years later, several decades later, in fact, more than 100 years later, people have become much more modernized, far wiser to the world, far wiser to the world's politics, and it's no longer needed in the present and current format.
So you want to secede because South Africa was made possible by an ideology that was brought through colonization, like the amalgamation of all the states in South Africa was as a result of colonization. And previously there were different states. So in other words, you're just saying that you just want to default back, to how things were when there were different states. interesting indeed. But my next question to you is, what measures are you taking place, or have you put in place to ensure that the cessation thing happens? And is it only Cape Town, or the Western Cape that you have that is going to secede?
Do we want secession only in Cape Town? No. The answer is no. We can, yes. Most of the Western Cape people stay in the Greater Cape Peninsula area, which includes Paarl and Stellenbosch, but it was not the intention really when the Cape Party or the Cape Secessionist and the independence lobby groups were started. The Cape has always had a unique history according to its people, its mixed and diverse society. It revolves around Eurokaners and Afrikaners and Afrikaans. The Afrikaans was born in the Cape as a result of Dutch, and so too were the sort of cultural religious developments from the Cape. So in principle, more or less, the Cape, as per the maps of prior to the Union of South Africa, let's say more or less 1910 or late 1800s going into the 1900s, that is the sort of area where we recommend that such people consider secession. There's parts of the Eastern Cape, in my opinion, that should also be considering secession. And there are secessionist movements in the Eastern Cape amongst the Xhosa people. There are secessionist movements in the KwaZulu-Natal space, and there are secessionist movements or people wanting independence and their own circumstances and their own set of government in Venda and surrounding areas. So this is not a new thing at all. It's going on in the rest of the world. In Catalan, as one example, there's Tyrol in southern Europe, southern Central Europe. Borders change as societies and people change, and socioeconomic circumstances change. The measures that we have put in place, in fact, in probably when CODESA was still taking place, people realized that they could not necessarily succeed in all the lofty ideas that they were dreaming up in CODESA and negotiating. So already at that time, I think the seeds for secessionist movements were sown. Every other nation in South Africa except the Afrikaners had previously their Bantustans, as they were called. And there are people that still believe that the whole of South Africa belongs to the Afrikaners, because they are the people that really, let's say, established South Africa as we know it today, because they established the Orange Free State and the Transvaal Republic. These were Boer republics, which were essentially Afrikaner republics, until the British came along with a greedy colonial type of mentality and annexation and so on. And for that matter, they could have even put Zambia and Rhodesia into South Africa. But they did not. They decided to have those as separate countries. So, and Bechuanaland, for that matter, was the homeland of the Tswana people. So even in those countries, you will find occasional Afrikaners. But I think that maybe when the decisions were being made in Britain, most of them were made in Britain for the South Africa Act, then because Bechuana land was distinctively different, it did not have as many Afrikaners in it, so same sort of circumstances with those of Zambia or northern and southern Rhodesia, which was later Rhodesia, which was later Zimbabwe, all different circumstances. So ever since, I would say, Codesa and the absence of a designated and unmet Afrikaner Accord, which was signed in Codesa for the establishment of a Afrikaner enclave or an Afrikaner homeland or an Afrikaner community governed by itself, ever since that time, the measures, as you put that terminology, for the establishment of secessionist states and minority states and self-governed states and culturally, linguistically, ethnologically self-governed states were already being put in place. The exact date, for example, of the Cape Party establishment, I think, was 2007, when it was registered on the Independent Electoral Commission voters' roll and party roll, chapter, whatever one would really call it, the proper terminology, it fails me now, I don't know it. The South African government, yes, has been approached on 2 occasions, from what I can understand, by the United Liberty Alliance and recently by the Cape Independence Advocacy Group. There may or may not have been correspondence specifically from the Cape Party on the same matter. That you will have to find out from the leader of the Cape Party, of which I'm also affiliated. I previously was a nominee ward councillor for one of the wards in Cape Town. The ward is predominantly inhabited by Jewish folk and South African Afrikaner white folk, but not entirely. There's some other very, very, very liberal kind of people living in the same neighborhood. Okay.
Okay, a large chunk of South Africa, as you have put it, actually wants to secede, because like you've mentioned, the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, KZN, Limpopo. Okay. And you've also said that the seeds were sown during Codesa. Yeah. But my last question to you is, have you approached the government, the South African government, about that issue, and have you received any form of intimidation or threats because you want to secede, as well as what is the proposed name, of the new country that you have in mind?
The proposed new country, if it does emerge, depends on who is being the pundit for it. But I would imagine that the country would be called the New Cape of Good Hope, or the Cape of Good Hope, or the Cape Republic, something to that effect. In a nutshell, it's more or less that. It could be the Free Federal Republic of the Cape. I do not know what the outcome will be. The purpose of the exercise is that ethno-linguistic communities will implement direct democracy And having implemented direct democracy, the various cantons, as we would call it, would decide on their own what they would like to name their province or their country or their canton, whatever level of self-determination and secession they wish to employ. One of the other contributing reasons why the motivation for the secession is there is because we do not anticipate that people that are, we're not tribalists in South Africa anymore, really. Well, most of us are not. But we are still plagued by people that are tribalist. They absolutely do not understand why they vote for a particular person, and they vote for people, some of them at least, for people that are one of their kind, but definitely are not working as if they are their kind, because some of these characters that get voted for are rogues, thieves, and criminals. And they do not share the spoilings with all of their people, and many of them are extremely greedy and gluttonous. They are not proper leaders. They are clowns and jack-in-the-boxes and dancers on political stages and singers and all manner of sort of circus characters, you know. These are not proper leaders. Proper leaders do different things. Proper leaders make sure that all the matters and particulars are in place for economies to flourish. They do not go steal from their neighbors. They do not corrupt the government tender system. They do not employ Employment Equity Act and broad-based black economic empowerment, which would be wonderful if you actually had competent people to employ on the basis of merit. But they don't just employ people on the basis of merit. They employ people on the basis of color, which is a bad system of judging, and it's a bad system to try to implement the improvements that are very, very necessary to make the economy grow in South Africa. So the mere fact that they dreamt up broad-based black economic empowerment at the expense of every other minority when everybody else is in a minority, and they've abused this broad-based black economic empowerment, affirmative action, employment equity policy to enrich very few, a couple only really, of people that have been employed on the basis of nepotism or any other kind of corrupt system. So those are the motivations why, for that matter, it could be the Cape Party, for that matter, it could be the Freedom Front, but I would say this with a caveat in terms of the Freedom Front Plus. The Freedom Front Plus only recently has started to become a more representative party. It has now started to embrace the colored community, which is also Afrikaans-speaking community, which is really the community of the Cape. The DA has failed. They've made many idle promises. ANC has failed. They've made very many idle promises, and they are extremely corrupt. The Economic Freedom Front is for a splinter group of disgruntled, very, very uninformed youths that are not politically astute, and who are the mouthpieces of what the ANC doesn't want to say, because the ANC realizes if they were to say those things, and the perception would be that the populist government in South Africa is not going to attract any investment at all with those kinds of policies that they share, and sometimes share under the guise of the African National Congress Youth Wing masked and covered up by the EFF makeup that it has. So, since the Western Cape is a second biggest contributor to the economy of South Africa, but does not get the second biggest chunk of the fiscus, it is absolutely a no-brainer that the Cape should already be seceding and looking after itself. The mother of invention is the saying goes, the mother of invention is a necessity. And it is necessary that the other provinces in South Africa become economically self-sufficient. They cannot continue to be sponging off like leeches off the Western Cape. And we should not be feeling pity for them, and we should not be feeling sorry for them when the people of the Western Cape are suffering because more than half the money that's generated in the province has to go and subsidize other provinces. That is wrong in my impression. It is completely incorrect. If you cut off the lifeline to those provinces that are depopulating because everybody is going to where they think the money is, where there is a strain already on the economy, and those provinces are, for example, the Transkei, the Eastern Cape. It can be the breadbasket of South Africa, but no, it's not, because the simple fact that they export their people, it's brainless. It doesn't work that way. So each region has to become independent, strong, with a good rural economy, with a good peri-urban and city industrial economies, and work from that basis. The DORA, or the Division of Revenue Act, ensures that at least 40% of the money that is supposedly wisely, if it was applied wisely, belonging in the Western Cape is squandered or spent in another province. It is wrong to think that that can go on forever and a day. And if we've not weaned off those sponge kind of orientated people, then it's about time that we do it. They will either survive or they will croak. We anticipate they will survive because they have every kind of device that they really need to be able to survive. The land, the sun, the labor, the resources to prosper, but instead they will rather flock to the cities and become nuisances in cities. So really we need to solve this once and for all. The simple fact that the ANC is absolutely atrocious. It is ruining the economy. It is absolutely stretching it to the max. And it is doing so at the expense of minorities that are a large part of the population. And whereas they have conned the other part of the population to believe the lies of people who are still actually in poverty in many places.
Well, that's a wrap of today's segment of AfriCast. Remember, if you want more segments like this, you can simply send us an email at africast54@gmail.com. That's AFRICAST54@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can use our WhatsApp number. Just send subscribe to +27671255463. Or if you have any other queries, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number and our email address to air up your grievances. Thank you so much.